Our mission at Resilient Advisor is to have a significant impact on the retirement crisis by educating and empowering financial advisors to better serve their clients. We bring you industry thought leaders and experts to help you make a difference in the lives of your clients.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Resilient Advisor. My name is Jay Coulter. This is part of our FinTech series, and today I'm speaking with Adam Holt, the founder and CEO at Asset Map. Adam, thanks for coming on.
Jay, awesome to be here with you today.
So I appreciate you coming on because I've fallen in love with your technology, and I don't say that to many people that come on the show. And it really is for two reasons. Number one, I've seen high adoption amongst my clients. And number two, the radical simplicity that it brings to a practice really speaks to the effectiveness of what you have. Before we get into what your product actually delivers, I'd like to have a conversation that starts with your background, how you started Asset Map, and then let's talk about the customer journey that I know that you advocate for. So tell us about your background.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thanks again for having me. And it's awesome that to be part of the Resilient community. I think you've done a fantastic job, and thanks for all you do. Interesting enough, the path to how we got here with Asset Map has been an interesting one. It wasn't intentional so much. I was a financial advisor. I would call myself a recovering financial planner for the last 24 years. I learned a lot in the business. I started in the insurance side, got into asset management, and then basically moved to financial planning. You take all that, you culminate, you learn a lot. And what I think most of us were frustrated with was all knew we had to add technology. It became a massive mess stack. We used half of what we bought, paid for 100% of it. And at the end of the day, I found that most people wanted simplicity. So for my high net worth clients, we started, classically just trying to create what we thought they wanted, which was a visualization of all their junk. And interestingly enough, I think the more complicated the household, the more they wanted and craved simplicity. It's just overwhelming. So we designed this process back in 2006, believe it or not. And I started using it in my own practice, and I tripled my revenue 3 years in a row and said, you know what, maybe this is scalable. Maybe other people could use this. And that's what happened. In 2012, it went viral. A bunch of other advisors started using it, and literally now there's thousands of advisors around the world, multiple currencies using Asset Map. Mostly because I think we finally figured out how to communicate the way that people want to be to receive that communication. It's got to be technically pure for us advisors, right? We're professionals. We understand the nuances, but it still has to be consumable. So we came up with this concept called Simple Rich, which is now an overarching principle for everything that we do, which is the idea that it's got to be consumable, but valuable and relevant. Otherwise, we don't want it. One page or that's it. Can't fit on less than one page. We don't want it. So that's the story of how we got Asset Map. And now it's taken over my life.
It most certainly has. I got to tell you, I showed this to an advisor who's managing about $500 million, and he's fairly tech forward. He's sitting inside of a wirehouse about to go independent. And so he hadn't really done a deep dive on stuff, and he's older. So he's in his later 60s, and I showed it to him, and he said, Jay, I've been doing this for my clients for 35 years with pencil and paper. This enables me to do it with one simple app. It really is transforming the client experience and the client's journey, which is something that you advocate for.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And frankly, that is the most common response we get, which is, I do this on a yellow pad. I've been doing this on a white or smart board for years. I just now have the ability to scale it. And that's the opportunity. The interesting thing about it, Jay, too, is a lot of advisors have their best notes in their paper files, right? They're on their scribble notes. That's not getting into digital systems. The real challenge we've realized, actually, now that we've really attacked, is getting that into a place where now all that data is shareable and consumable in an instant, just by looking at their asset map and reviewing what's going on in their household, delegating it for succession, and dealing with the practice management challenges that we all deal with. Once we create success, it's, I have this massive farm. Now what do I do, right? Now I got to think of the next challenge. Now you get it to a certain level. So we've been thoughtful about that as well.
All right, so let's talk for a minute about the customer journey. You guys have put together a great graphic that I'm throwing up on the screen. If you are listening to this on audio, please visit asset-map.com/journey. You can see your copy. But walk us through this iteration of what you think the client journey should be and how advisors should think about it.
Well, this is really interesting because, we tend to solve problems that I think a lot of us complain about, and then we're like, let's just go solve it. And the problem we were trying to solve here is many of the advisors were telling us they didn't know where to invest, right? There's so much you can do with innovation technology today. And we said, well, gosh, we got to actually understand what is the true customer journey. And what we found, Jay, is that there was so much complexity and people just didn't know where to start. So what we did is we built this massive survey for advisors and for customers. And we asked them what was their journey in interacting with an advisor. It turns out it basically fell into these 5 categories. Somehow you're introduced to an advisor and a client. Somehow you interact with those 2 people, usually. You provide some kind of guidance or needs analysis or deep planning, whatever it is, and then you implement those solutions, hopefully, and then you manage the relationship. So all of us are dealing with the same concept of going from point of sale or point of advice to servicing our clients. What was interesting about that is that we found where almost all of those pain points overlapped. In other words, think about the customer journey and the advisor journey. They both have their own journey, right? But there are points where they overlap. And we said, gosh, if we could invest in the high impact points they overlap, we could actually, knock over more dominoes, if you will. And so we said these were the top 2 in each of those categories where both the advisor and the client complained about the journey. As an example, you can read there. In early introductions, they said one of their most impactful, memorable moments of the customer journey was how they were actually first given an impression of each other. How did the advisor decide that this client was the right fit? And how did the client find and get a good feel that this might be a good fit, right? Those early dating components. What does that tend to mean? So if we were to actually look at our own customer journey, ask ourselves this question and score ourselves from a 1 to 10, as an example, how well we think we intentionally create good first impressions and how we also manage scheduling, another major pain point, okay? If we can invest in those 2 things, we might get some indication. So we basically said, okay, let's create this sheet. You can go download it, as you said, Jay, and give yourself an honest score. It's interesting. We actually took this back to our original firm and gave it to all our partners, and we got different answers. And so it was important to then figure out as a practice, what are 1 or 2 things we can actually invest in this year? So that's the utility of it. Hopefully that's valuable to each of us in the field.
Yeah. Adam, what was your biggest takeaway from this? Was there one particular pain point that really stood out?
That's interesting. It really depends on the kind of firm that you're part of. We see actually a lot of firms will give themselves high marks in that guidance and implementation side. They think they do great planning and guidance. That's the core of their practice. Where they tend to really, have pain is in the customer, the relationship management, right? Am I going to invest in portals? Am I going to do file sharing? Should I do vaults? Do I need to create an app? Are we committed to an ongoing content management strategy to keep top of mind awareness, right? This is where I think advisors have been light in general. Also in the front end marketing, we've seen, I think a real gap in terms of advisors. And that's mostly because the world has changed a bit. They're not getting clients the same way they used to, or they've relied upon the organic growth of their AUM to basically keep their growth rate up. And now all of a sudden, what's going to happen if we see a change in margins and or growth of the portfolios that have been feeding us our native growth? Do we have to go back to generating new business? That's, I think, going to be a question. So marketing is going to be really important because we tend to see very low scores there.
So anecdotally, without the bevy of research that you have behind what you shared, I find most advisors don't feel like they're taking care of their clients. And in fact, when people reach out, it's that they're saying, Jay, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know that I'm taking care of my clients. And then usually ask a follow-up question about their investment system and their planning system, and they can't articulate what that is. And, I've said this on the show a few times before, you would have to be a sociopath if you went out to go onboard new clients, if you didn't think you were taking care of your current clients and you didn't like your investment and planning system. So, that as a key pain point is something that I see throughout the whole marketplace, Adam.
Interesting.
So and it isn't to be self-serving for this interview. I think that's actually one of the problems that Asset Map does help solve. So let's start at a high level, and let's keep it at a high level because I encourage people to go out and get a demo of this platform so you can see it for yourself. Walk us through the features of the Asset Map platform.
The idea behind Asset Map as it's evolved, and I appreciate what you said in the beginning that you love Asset Map. I love Asset Map too. I think of it actually as my second child, and she's growing up now, and she's now in the hands of other people, and she's out of the house, if you will, which is kind of fun. We really tend to focus on really the highest level of our job as a financial professional, which is number one, we need to get on the same page with our clients. That is the number one, I think, role early on, to build confidence, to promote our competence. We need to show the clients that we know them, we know their situation, and we can bring them relevant options. That is the key to all consultation. So instead of focusing on 800-page reports and all this fantastic technical beauty, which we keep to ourselves, by the way, that's not saying we don't do that. We figured out, well, could we create literally a way to answer the two major questions? Do you know me? Can you prove that you know what's going on in my life? Well, yes, let me visually give it back to you. This is what I know what's going on in your life. Here's the people, the entities, the trusts you have, any kind of complexity. Here's all the assets you control, all the income sources you have coming in, maybe going out. Here's all the liabilities you have. And let's not forget those insurance policies that get ignored. These are all the financial instruments that every household we know of, whether they have one instrument or no instruments or 100, they have some financial closet, and we got to dump it on the bed, and we got to literally organize it before we decide what goes back in that closet. Okay. Because what it turns out, Jay, is that almost all individuals, whether wealthy or trying to be, have not necessarily asked intentionally whether something deserves and serves them that's in that financial closet. They have accumulated a bunch of stuff that people sold them or they bought because they thought it made sense, and they haven't really addressed it. So I think what the first thing a financial advisor does to actually address the pain point you expressed early, which is, am I doing right by my clients, is to just stop and say, wait a minute, is what we're doing currently serving your agenda? And that might actually answer another question, which is, maybe I don't know what your agenda is, client. It's a time for us to ask this question. Okay. We need to know why we're doing what we're doing. And that's what the asset map tries to facilitate. It's trying to elevate the advisor experience by saying, hey, can we now have a different conversation because everything's on the table, the good and the bad and what's missing? And that's how advisors tend to use it. It is the native aspect of this is to just enable a conversation and elevate the advisor's ability to professionally deliver context and education. In other words, I see that you have an IRA. I see you have an old 401k you left at the old employer. Why did we do that? Should we discuss that? Is that efficient? Does that serve you? How's it managed? Who's the beneficiary? These questions that we all ask, we need permission sometimes to ask them. When it's on the map, you can't avoid it. Okay. And that goes to all the different aspects. So what tends to happen is, in the early days, asset map is a fact-finding machine or a fact validation experience that enables a conversation for the advisor to apply their advisor intelligence in real time, not necessarily system intelligence, but advisor intelligence. So we're really focused, Jay, on lifting the advisor's preeminence as a catalyst in the conversation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Without a doubt. That's exactly what it does. For audio listeners, what does the client experience with the asset map tool?
Well, that's a good question. One of the things that we've been really conscientious about is that we collect an enormous amount of data on people, right? We're collecting 5 points for those that are interested: the people and the entities, assets, liabilities, insurances, and income sources, or cash flows, as we call them. Those are the 5 tenets of basically understanding what's in the financial closet. What we've built is the ability to go directly to the consumer or prospect, if however you call them, allow them to do on their phone or any mobile device. In 15 minutes, they can collect at a high level that data, and it will build for the professional an asset map, a visualization, an interactive visualization of all of that information, regardless of how complicated that household is. The advisor then does a couple things. They can either do some fun things I think that you'll find interesting. They can either print the thing out, draw over it, and say, hey, I think we need to put some attention here the way we would in the yellow pad world. Send it to the client, say, this is what I understand are these the facts? And that's a really engaging way for customers to see their financial life for the first time on one page instead of 800 pages of nonsense they're not reading. But the other thing we focused on recently, this is going to be a new innovation coming out, is a concept of signals. We've added an artificial intelligence component of this to signal to the advisor only. These are a couple of pain point areas. For example, if this family had lost one of the major wage earners, they would be right now underinsured or undercovered. If they had a long-term care event, they don't have the right capital structure, right? So we needed a way to bubble up conversations without the advisor having to dig through the financial x-ray to figure out which bone is broken. Okay, so the system now can actually tell you some high level, some areas. The second thing is we can also overlay what your peers have, and this is really unique. And this was we like to joke that Netflix stole this one from us, because if you follow Netflix or watch it, after you finish the show, what do they ask you, Jay? They say, people like you also watch this, right? Yep. Here's 10 more shows you can binge to suck you in. We actually started doing this years ago. We can actually overlay what your peers are doing. So for example, it's sometimes challenging to tell a client they need to talk about maybe an estate plan or an insurance strategy or an annuity concept or lifetime income. It feels salesy in many ways. What if we could just put on their own asset map a box, a placeholder that says, you might consider this because this is what your peers do based upon other ex-gen or baby boomers or attorneys or people who work at a firm. So the key is that the advisor has the capacity to now message and overlay conceptually what you might also see. And it's an easier conversation than the typical, hey, you need X. Okay. Mm-hmm. So those are the things that we're focusing on a lot these days.
And so is there a client portal for your tool, or do they just get the map delivered?
Right now, there's not a client portal because so many advisors have complained to us that their clients have too many logins. And given the sensitivity of the data, we've been very, we'll call it protective. That being said, we actually have in the works and we're expecting something for later this year, a client portal, client experience that could be enabled. Probably it will be read-only because we don't want to take that, we'll call that authority away from the advisor. We need the advisor to still be very relevant to the changes.
Yeah, and I probably should have framed that question a little bit differently because I don't believe clients are going to these client portals that often. And there's a massive focus with the traditional financial planning software to use that as the portal. And it does look good, whether you're talking about eMoney, Right Capital, Money Guide Pro. But the adoption rate, at least amongst the advisors that I work with, is just not that high. It seems to me if you're using an asset map, you're simply delivering the map back to them that you can show them on their iPad or a printed sheet of paper.
It's true. Fair? You know, it is true. And our reports are that, and the reason we didn't build it is that approximately 20% of clients are actually utilizing the portals enable them, and only 4% are keeping the aggregation up to date. And that's just because we all know the links break. So in many ways, we've all known that portals have been a marketing strategy to say we can provide you access, and then you just find out that people don't actually access it. I think the challenge, Jay, though, is because the current portals are just a balance sheet online, and I need that when I need it. I don't need it continuously. When I'm making decisions, I might want it. I think, if you were able to see your entire financial life on one page, you might be inclined to log in and see that more often. And that's one of the reasons why we think it's actually about how you deliver the information, not that you can. And I think that's an important aspect of what we're focusing on.
And so you guys have been recognized inside the industry. I mean, T3 and the Inside Information Software Survey is the industry bellwether. And in 2021, you're the highest rated financial planning technology. And it's amazing because you guys have grown this very, very quickly. And the adoption is wide. Are advisors getting rid of their traditional financial planning software and just using Asset Map?
I would tell you that there are some. But at the end of the day, I think our price point is one that in most professionals can easily justify, adding additional software and then finding out, our legacy systems and tools we've used forever, they're comfortable to us. That doesn't mean we need to throw them out. We have integrations with firms like Money Guide, as an example. You can push Money Guide to an asset map and have a visualization layer. That's really fun as a presentation. We're working with several other companies in the financial planning space to do this. So I think you're going to see more and more integration as opposed to replacement. And there's no question, a lot of advisors have data on these platforms they can't afford to basically, we'll call exit or transition. And I don't know that they have to. We're one of the things we're seeing is that the bellwethers of financial planning in the space who conceivably we competed against in that survey, that own the market probably are applicable for 20 to 40% of the clientele marketplace of an advisor. Asset Map's applicable to 100%. So what we tend to see is that they use Asset Map in the front end to get on the same page and then determine which clients need the deeper planning, which ones need triage, which we can easily handle because we have a financial planning engine built right into Asset Map that's full seamless. So, you could literally do financial planning in 30 seconds in Asset Map versus the need to transfer that to another platform. So I think we're going to see some level of competition just because there's attention span deficit. But I think you're going to see overlaps as well.
So we're recording this in the fall of 2021. For the off-the-shelf pricing, what does an advisor expect?
Yeah, sure. You could figure that it's an annual contract for our professional platform, which has all our current functionality at $129 a month equivalent. We do, as I said, an annual contract. We also have one that eliminates the planning at $99 a month if you just want Asset Map and integrations and all the other fun reporting interactions. But what's really most amazing to me is that we've been tracking productivity and at enterprise scale, users and non-users against each other. 6 years in a row, there've been double-digit lifts in productivity and revenue productivity lifts over those using Asset Map. So it's a very clear ROI multiplier. In your first or second client, you'll make the cost back. So arguably, Jay, we should raise prices.
Arguably, you should. I mean, that really is a heck of a value at 129 when you look at the price points for some other software out there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, look, our goal is to put an Asset Map on every refrigerator on the planet. Okay. So that means we need to make it accessible too. But we really support the advisor journey because we are advisors by trade. We understand the importance of a human coach in getting people to take action that serves them. And that's why that's why we really want to support the advisor movement in delivering this to their clients.
Yeah. Listen, I encourage viewers and listeners, go grab a trial at asset-map.com. That's asset-map.com. Adam, let's pivot. You are now a fellow podcaster. Tell listeners a little bit about the Rethink podcast.
Yeah. So this was a project that, Derek Notman, who's also a fellow CEO of a fintech, who's also an ex-advisor. We always talked at these conferences and we seem to have a similar mentality about what was broken in the space. So we said, it's time for us to rethink podcasting and say, how do we create something that's going to be both coaching and mentoring and also the opportunity to learn and discuss the more uncomfortable topics I think that we see advisors ignoring or never having a forum to talk about publicly. So we're getting in the mix and saying it how we think it should be said. And we're also laughing at each other and making fun of each other. So it's a fun opportunity, especially in the social distancing time to create community around financial advice. And we, like you, we allow people to comment and bring in. So we're figuring it out. We're having a lot of fun. It's getting fantastic play rate. So we're really blessed to see how many people I see appreciate it, I guess. So we certainly invite your community to participate if you want to rethink.
Yeah. Here's why you should check out the Rethink podcast. Number one, it is entertaining and educational. They have fun with it. And number two, the average length of the podcast is 7 minutes. Do I have that right, Adam?
No, I wish it was 7 minutes. They wind up being about 30 minutes to 40 minutes, but we do these speed interviews with people that are well known in only 7 minutes, so that it's not a full diatribe of where I went to high school and what what I ate for breakfast, how many fights I had with my siblings. We tend to focus on, can I interview? We just interviewed Michael Kitces in 7 minutes, and then we debate what he talked about. And we said, do we agree? Do we disagree? So we get that opportunity for the commentary side as opposed to a one-sided perspective.
Got it. So I definitely had that wrong. It's the interview that's 7 minutes. Now, how in the world did you interview Michael Kitces in 7 minutes?
We had to cut it. We got 3 podcasts worth in the time. That's funny you say that. He has a lot of knowledge comes out of one question. It's pretty funny.
Oh man, that's great. And is that particular episode live?
It's not. It's actually it's pending. It's coming out hopefully soon.
Excellent. Please check out the Rethink podcast. I want to wrap up on something that, Adam, was the reason you and I connected socially, and that is the Advice Tech Live virtual conference that you hosted last month. I was fortunate that you asked me to be a panel member, but what really impressed me the most is what you guys were able to accomplish for your benefactor. Would you please tell listeners and viewers a little bit about the conference?
Sure. Well, thank you for being part of it. It really makes a difference that individuals like yourself were willing to contribute your time. One of the things that we've been frustrated with for years, so of course we have to fix it, or rethink it was the fact that conferences weren't always accessible. There's a lot of money to go to them. A lot of advisors don't get to see the newest tech because they can't get on a plane. Obviously, current conditions notwithstanding, a lot of people are not getting on planes, and they're not going to go spend several $1,000s and days away from their practices and families. So we wanted to create a way to actually profile fintech products that are being built. Last year we did, it was our inaugural event in 2020. 2021, we wanted to rethink that again and say, okay, what do people really need to see? They really need to see what's being built today that's new, not the old stuff. So we got 20 companies to basically sponsor and hold this event. And we got 20 thought leaders like yourself to talk to us about why it's important to invest in certain areas of your fintech and what to be aware of, so that there is an outlet for this. And at the end of the day, we knew we were going to be net positive on sponsorships. And so we actually chose a benefactor partner, which means that any of the profitability of the event was going to go to something that lifted our community, our specific community of financial advice. And we chose the Foundation for Financial Planning because of the great work they're doing in pro bono delivery of planning for families that are going through real significant hardships and don't know where to turn. Cancer, vets coming back, they're having major debt situations. How do I budget? These things where we have skills as advisors, can we deliver them to our community pro bono? And so they support and create those connections. So we're really excited. This year we raised over $30,000 together as a community, literally $70 at a time. That says a lot about what we can do together. And I'm really excited to have been part of that.
Yeah, $30,000 for pro bono financial planning. It really is incredible and very admirable what you guys did. Adam, I really, really appreciate you coming on the show. I love Asset Map. I can't even hide that on this podcast. For audio listeners, please check out asset-map.com. That's asset-map.com. Again, thanks for coming on, Adam.
Thank you, Jay. Thanks for all you do.